Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Amanda and I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 audiobooks that I have read, listened to this year. So let's go. Alright guys, so I know that not everyone loves audiobooks. When I first started back into reading as an adult, I did not think that I was gonna love audiobooks. But I have really grown to love them, and I have come to realize that they are not all created equal, and there are a lot of things that go into what makes a good audiobook, in my opinion. So I have thought about this and come up with like 3 things that really make an audiobook great for me. Obviously, this goes beyond the basics, the basic things you would expect from an audiobook. I would expect that every audiobook would have clear audio, that the speaker, the person narrating the book, would be clear and easy to understand. Obviously, those are the things that you baseline, every audiobook should have those things. Beyond that, I think that listening to an audiobook, the best ones are ones that add something to my experience of that book. So audiobooks they have something that makes it better for me to have listened to it than to have just read it on my own. It has to make the reading experience better for me in order for me to consider it, one of my top audiobooks. The second thing for me is that and you're gonna see it a lot in the books that I'm gonna talk about, but I like for the narrator to be believable and like they belong with this book. For example, if the narrator is having to speak as the main character, then I want to believe that the person narrating the book could actually be that person. I think their voice needs to match, their demeanor needs to match that character at least a little bit, in order for their narrating to be believable for me and to fit. They need to fit the characters from the book. The third thing is I love when there are different voices in a book. So, for example, in one of the books that I have, there's a Jamaican character, and the narrator of that book uses a Jamaican accent, and I love it. I love accents. I love to have the different characters have different voices. So the women have a different voice than the men, maybe, or whatever it is. There's plenty of books that don't use voices, and they're fine. Some of my favorite books that I've listened to have been just kind of the same tone, the same accent across the whole book, and that's fine. But if there are voices, I think it really does enhance the reading experience. So let's get into the books that I chose. These are all, so I have 5 books that I read this year, and then I have one book that I want to talk about that I read last year, but I think it needs to be mentioned in a video like this, so I'm going to add that to the end. The first one would be Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is a science fiction book that pretty much follows one main character going into space and what he encounters there. So what I think made this audiobook great is that the narrator is believable. So the guy that is talking in the book matches the person narrating it. His voice is exactly what I would imagine this guy sounds like, and that's awesome. The other thing in this book that made it really great to listen to on audio is because it is a book about space and there are aliens, having those sounds and those voices done for you, I think really enhanced it for me. I do not think that I would have liked this book as much as I did if I just read it on my own. I think I still would have liked it, but this really added something to it for me that if you don't necessarily love reading science fiction, I think listening to this one on audio will really pull you in and help you connect with the characters in the story if you're not already like a huge science fiction fan. I think if you're a huge science fiction fan, then it may not matter as much, but for me, given that that is not my go-to, it really helped me to have the sounds and voice of the alien otherworldly creatures. The next book that I have is All the Lonely People by Mike Gale. I love this book anyway, and I think I would have loved it just as much if I hadn't have listened to it on audio, but I did. And like I said earlier, the main character is from Jamaica and he moves to the United States, and I think having that Jamaican accent really well done in my ears just helped me picture him more and really love him so much. I was very attached to the main character of this book, and I think having the accent and feeling like that character was actually talking to me in the book, or that I was in the room where he was talking, was just wonderful. It really, really enhanced this book. So I think if you read that one, you'll like it either way, but listening to it really did enhance it for me. Let's see, the next one I want to talk about is Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo. This again has a very believable narrator. This is a middle grade story about a young girl living in the South and her dog. I thought the narrator did a really good job on the Southern accent and sounding like a young girl. Sometimes when you read the kind of language that's in that book, it can kind of bog you down a little bit if that's not like your baseline language. Like, I live in the South, but I'm not from the South, so I can sometimes have a little bit of trouble with the accent, but listening to this book it just really warmed my heart to hear her accent, because I love the Southern accent so much. But it's not natural to me, so when I read, it would have kind of, I think it may have tripped me up a little bit trying to read a Southern accent, but hearing it was wonderful. And I think that kids listening to that would really love it as well and really connect with that character, because she is so lovable through her voice and her accent. The next one I have is Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. The reasons I like this one is, again, the narrator was very believable to me to be the main character. I love this character. Ray is the main character, and he is a violin player and living in the South in North Carolina. And I thought that the narrator, again, the same with All the Lonely People, where I felt like it was the main character talking to me. And obviously these books are fiction, but if you can have a narrator that makes that happen, I think the experience for the reader just shoots way up. And I don't know that I would have loved this book as much. I mean, I love the story and kind of the mystery in it, but I really loved the narrator, and I enjoyed listening to it. Also, there's music interspersed through this one, which is cool because it's about a violin player and his violin getting stolen. So I loved how they had the music in between chapters and in between the parts. It just really enhanced it for me, you know. It would have been fine without it, but I do think it added something to it for the reader and really immerses you in that kind of classical music culture that is not something that I know a lot about or am immersed in a lot. So it just added to that immersion for me and really helped me get into that lifestyle and what it might be like to be that main character. And then the last one I have that I read this year is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I would not read this book any other way. The narrator for this was fantastic and really played the part of the main character so well that it was just so believable, and it was part of the reason I really love the book and part of the reason that I really was rooting for this character and could feel his emotions and could just, it was like you were in it with him. And I think she's a great writer, and I think that could happen even if you didn't listen to it. If you read a print copy, I don't know. For me, it really, I wouldn't even want to read it any other way because I connected with the character, the main character especially, so well by listening to it. I didn't want it to be over, so it must have been good. Okay, and then the bonus one is one that I read last year, and it is a book by Ann Patchett called The Dutch House. So this book is narrated by Tom Hanks, and I grew up watching a lot of Tom Hanks movies. Castaway comes to mind. He doesn't talk a lot in that one, but that one comes to mind. But there are so many others. Tom Hanks he has a very recognizable voice, and I absolutely loved listening to him read this book. It was like listening to a voice that I knew throughout my childhood, and it was so fun and so interesting. And the book is already so good. The story is really good, in my opinion. It's about a brother and sister, family relationships, things like that. And I loved the story. So I would have loved it anyway, but it takes it up a notch for me that it was narrated by somebody whose voice I know very well. Yeah, that was the first book that I listened to that was narrated by somebody who was famous and that I actually knew who they were. And I loved it. I would recommend that book specifically on audio, but all the books that I have said, if you're gonna read them and you can tolerate audio or you like audio, I think it's definitely worth a shot for all these books on audio. I would love to hear what you think about audiobooks down in the comments. Do you love them? Do you hate them? And what are some of the best books that you have listened to on audio? Because I definitely need some good recommendations. So I would love to hear from you guys. For the kindness moment today, I have a quote that says, "Be kinder to yourself, and then let your kindness flood the world." And that was Pema Chodron. I'm probably not saying that right, but I did my best. And I think the message of this is just, if we can be kind to ourselves, which can be difficult. Personally, I probably struggle more being kind to myself than I do being kind to others. But I need to work on it, because the kindness that I give myself is going to flow back out and let me be kinder to other people. It's easier to be kind to other people when you are giving some of that kindness to yourself and filling up your own self, so that you will then have even more kindness to give away. Be kind to yourself, fill yourself with kindness, so that that's what flows out of you initially. So that that's the first thing that comes out of you, right? I think that's kind of what I get from that. So on that note, go out there and be kind to someone today, y'all.